Start the class. It's a very short class today and tomorrow. We're talking about congenital heart disease. There are two classes on congenital heart disease, and we'll discuss adult congenital heart disease, not all heart diseases, the ones which are seen in adults generally in the medical ward. So the first one is PFO, patent foramen ovale. Patent foramen ovale, PFO. Are you there? Everybody listening?
Yes, sir.
Now, you know, there's patent foramen ovale in fetus. It allows the transfer of oxygenated placental blood to the fetal circulation. I'll show you the diagram. You know, the purpose of patent foramen ovale is the blood which carries oxygen, nutrition from the mother goes to the right atrium, and there is foramen ovale. Then the blood goes to the left side of the heart through the foramen ovale. This is one of the shunts. There are two shunts. One is patent foramen ovale, the other is ductus arteriosus. They shunt the blood away from the lung because the fetus doesn't need lung to work, you know, because getting supply nutrition, oxygen from the mother, the fetus lung is not working. There's a high pressure in the lung in the fetus, and therefore the blood bypasses the lung. The shunt bypasses the lung in the fetus. So the blood moves from right atrium to the left atrium, then to the left ventricle, then via the aorta to the body. So this is a patent foramen ovale. See, this is patent foramen ovale. Now this is the right atrium. The blood comes here, then through the patent foramen ovale, it goes to the left atrium, then to the left ventricle, and then to the aorta. So this is what it looks like, patent foramen ovale. The blood from the mother coming here, it goes to this place, see? And left atrium, left ventricle, and then to the aorta. Now, after birth, you know, this patent foramen ovale usually closes within few weeks of life. Within few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, they get closed. But in 25-30% of the population, this remains patent. It doesn't close. So 25% of the population, it remains open. It doesn't close. And it doesn't cause any symptom. Usually asymptomatic. It is no problem. And you happen to notice it when you are investigating for something else. You are doing echo or something, then you see it. Otherwise, you don't even know that is there. The way to diagnose is by echocardiography. And you can show the abnormal blood flow from right side to the left, from the right to left atrium. In echo, you may be able to see it. And then in the diagnosis, you can diagnose the case. And as I told you, usually asymptomatic. It doesn't cause any problem. And we don't have to give any treatment for PFO. No treatment. They don't cause any problem. It is only in some patients, some adults, who get stroke. And you try to find out all causes for stroke, like, you know, hypertension, diabetes, other conditions, and then you find nothing, no reason, and dyslipidemia, nothing is there. And the patient, we call it cryptogenic stroke. We don't know why the stroke has occurred. And in these patients, we presume that it is some kind of venous thrombosis, which is coming to the right side of the heart and going through PFO, patent foramen ovale, and causing stroke. We call this cryptogenic stroke. Some adults get stroke. You try to find out causes. You don't see any cause. Then you do the echo, and then you find that there is PFO. Now, in such patient, if you close PFO, then you prevent a recurrence of stroke. Recurrence of stroke. And if in these patients who have stroke and you have closed, Then in this patient, you have to give antiplatelet therapy also, like aspirin, clopidogrel, so that in future the patient doesn't get this problem again. Okay, so this is all about patent foramen oval. You just have to know it, and it really doesn't need much treatment. Now, the next important topic is atrial septal defect, ASD. ASD is important. Now, if there is defect in the interatrial septum, we call this atrial septal defect. Now, in that case, blood flows from high pressure left atrium to the low pressure right atrium, from left atrium to the right atrium. So, extra blood, the usual blood coming from superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, coronary sinus is there in the right atrium. Besides that, the blood is coming from left atrium to the right atrium also, extra blood. So this patient has got a lot of blood in the right atrium, volume overload. Then there is a lot of blood going through tricuspid valve to the right ventricle. So right ventricle volume overload. So a lot of blood going to the pulmonary circulation. So, and it causes problem. But there are different kinds of atrial septal defect. Depending on where the defect is, we call it ostium primum, then sinus venosus, then there is your ostium primum. So ostium primum, ostium primum, ostium secundum, ostium sinus venosus. These are the three main types. The most common is ostium secundum. Ostium secundum. It's located here, almost in the middle. 75 to 85% of the people who have ASD is ostium secundum type. Then some people have ostium primum, which is in 10 to 15%. Ostium primum is way down, a little down near the tricuspid valve. And this is many times associated with abnormal valves also, cleft mitral valve. The third one, less common, is sinus venosus. It's high up. Sinus venosus is high up. So ostium secundum, most common. Ostium primum, next. Sinus venosus, least common. So here you see the location. This is ostium secundum, almost in the middle here. Ostium secundum. Then ostium primum is down, low, is pretty down. Okay? Associated many times with the valve abnormalities here, cleft mitral valve. Then sinus venosus is high up. So depending on the location, we classify. The commonest is, as I told you, ostium primum. Now, why does ASD occur? It's sporadic. You don't know. Some people just have it. But then sometimes it is associated with some genetic syndrome. There's something called Holt-Oram syndrome. You don't have to remember the name. And these patients have ASD, plus they have abnormal upper extremity, bone deformities in the upper extremity. Then it can be familial. You may see it in the familial, associated with some chromosomal abnormality, chromosome 5. So usually it is sporadic, sometimes genetic or familial. So this is about the ASD. And now pathophysiology, once you have a defect in the interatrial septum, now the blood goes from left to right side. So there is increased amount of blood in the right atrium, right ventricle, which goes to the pulmonary circulation. And a lot of blood goes to pulmonary circulation for a long time. The pulmonary vascular, the vessels become narrow. They develop pulmonary hypertension. So a lot of blood going into the pulmonary circulation for many years, for a long time. They develop pulmonary hypertension. And then they have right ventricular failure. They may have atrial arrhythmia, like atrial fibrillation is common in them. So this is the sequence of event. Patient usually present, the clinical presentation is they present with fatigue. They have exertional dyspnea. When they try to do some work, they have breathing difficulty. Then I told you they are liable to develop atrial arrhythmia, like atrial fibrillation. And if they have developed pulmonary hypertension and right heart failure has occurred, there'll be raised JVP, edema may be there. And if you do the examination of the precordium, you find there are a lot of pulsations in the parasternal region on the left side. A lot of pulsations you see. And if you try to listen, then you find that the second sound is split, fixed split. Second sound has aortic component, pulmonary component. Usually only in deep inspiration, you might be able to find out small amount of split. Otherwise, in expiration, you don't hear. And these patients in both expiration and inspiration, you hear the split. A2 and P2, you hear distinctly. That's called fixed splitting. Then there is flow murmur, because so much of blood is going through the pulmonary circulation, pulmonary valve. A lot of blood coming from right atrium to the right ventricle, and all this blood flowing into the pulmonary artery, they give rise to flow murmur, systolic murmur. And when there is a lot of flow and diastole in the tricuspid valve, you may hear even diastolic rumble also. So these are the physical findings in ASD, clinical presentation. There is one thing that they develop is known as Eisenmenger syndrome. We have to remember this syndrome. It's important. We sometimes ask in examination, Eisenmenger syndrome. I told you a lot of blood goes from left atrium to right atrium, and right atrium is already receiving blood from inferior vena cava, superior vena cava. And then all this blood going to the right ventricle into the pulmonary circulation, and patient develops, ultimately slowly develop pulmonary hypertension, I told you. Now, when pulmonary hypertension is very severe, it is more than systemic pressure, then there will be reversal of the shunt. Now some blood start going from right atrium to the left atrium. So there will be mixing of the blood. If the pulmonary hypertension is very severe and is more than systemic hypertension, systemic pressure, then there will be some reversal of the shunt. Some amount of blood will go from right atrium to the left atrium. So it goes into the systemic circulation. So patient will develop cyanosis. Patient will develop clubbing. So clubbing and cyanosis will occur in the patient. So this is known as Eisenmenger syndrome. Eisenmenger syndrome. Now, how do you diagnose atrial septal defect? Investigations. The first thing that we do is, if we suspect, we do ECG. And ECG, will show right bundle branch block pattern. In this ECG, I'll show you what is right bundle branch block pattern. See, this in lead 1, lead 2, these leads, you find that there is deep S wave, deep wide S wave. And then there's RSR pattern in V1. V1 generally normally has a small R wave and then the big S wave. And now these patients have RSR pattern. RSR pattern, and this wave goes down, T wave. So this is known as right bundle branch block pattern. So a young patient comes, you find there are a lot of pulsations in the precordium, and you listen to the heart, there is fixed split and there is systolic murmur, and you do ECG and you find this pattern, you immediately suspect, oh, this patient may be having ASD. And if you do X-ray, you find that there may be enlargement of the heart, cardiomegaly, and there is increased blood vessels in the lung, increased lung vasculature, and pulmonary, prominent pulmonary artery may be seen. If you see here, this is prominent. Where there's so much of blood going to the pulmonary artery, they become dilated. Huge amount of blood going to the pulmonary artery from the right ventricle. So this becomes very prominent. So these are findings compatible with ASD. And the most important investigation to diagnose is echocardiography. Now this is echocardiography. You find this is left atrium, this is right atrium. You find that there is a big gap here. Normally this is complete closure. Normally there is no gap like this. You find this interatrial septum. interatrial septum is complete normally. Here you find a big gap here. This is ASD, atrial septal defect is seen like this. Now, if you put the Doppler, color Doppler, you find the abnormal flow here. See, this is the defect, and blood is flowing from left atrium to the right atrium. You can see the abnormal flow. Normally, there is no such flow across like this. This is complete, no flow across like this. So in this patient, the left atrium, right atrium, you see the abnormal flow. That will tell you that, okay, blood is, this is ASD, blood is flowing from left atrium to the right atrium. Now, what treatment we give? Treatment is, nowadays, there is, most of the patients are treated with percutaneous intervention, especially in ostium secundum patient. Ostium secundum is the commonest. So we do percutaneous intervention. We use a closer device, here. If there is a defect here, this is a closer device we use known as Amplatzer atrial septal occluder. So there's a device closer for atrial septal defect is done these days. You pass catheter into the heart. Then in the catheter, you have this device and you apply this device there and you can close it. So percutaneous closure by Amplatzer atrial septal occluder has become common. This is the patch. After you have put in this device, you can close it by percutaneous route, through catheter. You don't have to operate. You don't have to do surgery. Okay? But some patients who have large defect, and it may be difficult to apply the patch there. And if the patient has other defect, like say there is cleft mitral valve, severe mitral regurgitation, there are other cardiac defect, then you have to do surgery. So this is the treatment of atrial septal defect. Now, we talk about ventricular septal defect now, VSD. Now, VSD, there is defect in the interventricular septum. Normally, there's there's no gap in the interventricular septum. The blood from the left ventricle and right ventricle don't mix. It's complete here. Septum is complete here. So in VSD, you have a defect. And the blood flows from high pressure left ventricle to the low pressure right ventricle. You see? So this is VSD, ventricular septal defect. And similarly, just like atrial septal defect, there are different kinds of ventricular septal defect, different kinds. Some are situated in, say, perimembranous, high up in the septum is called perimembranous. Then there may be subpulmonary. Then there may be muscular. Muscular. And then there are inlets. So different types are there. Perimembranous, muscular are common. So this is what is shown here. And muscular can be in different side. It may be multiple, it may be one or two, it may be only one, and it may be in different places in the interventricular septum. Muscular, in the muscular part. And perimembranous is, I told you, a little higher. So muscular, perimembranous, different types of ventricular septal defect may be there depending on the location. Now, once you have ventricular septal defect, blood goes through the shunt to the right ventricle. From the left ventricle, blood goes to the right ventricle. And then from the right ventricle, now a lot of blood goes to the pulmonary artery and then to the pulmonary circulation. So there is increased amount of blood going into the pulmonary circulation. And this blood now returns back to the left atrium. And from left atrium, this blood goes down to the left ventricle. So gradually what you find is, over a period of time, the left atrium becomes big, left ventricle becomes big. See? So lot of blood going from left ventricle to the right ventricle, lot of blood going to the pulmonary circulation, and all this blood returning back to the left atrium, left ventricle. So they become enlarged now. They become enlarged. This is what happens. And what are the clinical features? Well, small VSD, they don't cause problem, but they cause, if you listen to the heart, you find there is a loud pansystolic murmur, at the lower left sternal border, in the lower left sternal border and fourth intercostal space, left side, intercostal space, left side, left of the sternum. You find that there's a loud pansystolic, long systolic murmur you hear in small VSD. If it is moderate size VSD, then patient may have no problem for many years, but they develop heart failure later on, because the left ventricle, left atrium starts to become bigger and bigger, and they develop heart failure. And apex beat becomes displaced down and out because the left ventricle is enlarged. So apex beat goes down and out. And if you listen to the heart, you find that there's pansystolic murmur at the lower left sternal border, as I told you. If it is large VSD, it's usually detected in childhood itself. A large VSD, they cause problem right after birth, and they develop heart failure very soon, and then the child doesn't thrive, they don't grow well, and therefore this large VSD is diagnosed in childhood itself. They go to the pediatrician, and if it's moderate size, they sometimes come to the adult, say the medical ward also, okay? And we see them pretty often. And so this is what the presentation is. Small VSD, they come with a loud murmur. They usually don't cause problem. But if you have VSD, and if it's moderate size, then it can give rise to heart failure, as I told you. And one important complication of VSD is, these patients are liable to develop infective endocarditis. At the place of defect, there may be bacterial growth, and infective endocarditis may occur. And just like in ASD, they may develop Eisenmenger syndrome. I explained you in ASD, when a lot of blood go to the pulmonary circulation, and they develop pulmonary hypertension, and when the pulmonary pressure goes very high, becomes more than systemic pressure, then there is some reversal of the shunt. Blood flows from right ventricle to the left ventricle through the shunt now. Severe pulmonary hypertension, and we call this Eisenmenger syndrome, just like in ASD. So here also you can have Eisenmenger syndrome. Now, what investigations we do in VSD? We do ECG, and here in ECG you find that there is both enlargement of the right ventricle as well as left ventricle, because a lot of blood is going to the right ventricle, so right ventricle enlargement occurs, hypertrophy occurs, and also a lot of blood is returning back to the left atrium and left ventricle, therefore left ventricle also becomes big. So in ECG you find tall R wave in V1. This in V1 this indicates right ventricular hypertrophy, and you find that these R waves are very tall in V6, V5 also, very tall R wave, V4, V5, V6. This indicates left ventricular hypertrophy. So you have tall R wave in V1, that indicates right ventricular hypertrophy, and tall R wave in V5, V4, V5, V6, they indicate that this is left ventricular hypertrophy. So you get biventricular hypertrophy. And if you do the X-ray, now patient will have cardiomegaly, heart to be enlarged. There will be enlargement of atrium. You can see the double shadow of the left atrium here. Left atrium has become enlarged, and this is left ventricular enlargement, and increased pulmonary vasculature because a lot of blood is going into the pulmonary circulation. So you have left atrium enlargement, left ventricular enlargement, and then a lot of blood going into the pulmonary circulation. Now again, the diagnosis is from echo. We do the Doppler echo. You find that, see, there is a gap here, and the blood is flowing from the left ventricle to the right ventricle. This is abnormal flow. There is a gap, ventricular septal defect, and blood is flowing through this defect. If you see this in echo, you know that this is ventricular septal defect. This is another example. You know, is a parasternal axis, left ventricle, right ventricle, left ventricle, right ventricle, interventricular septum, and you see here high up, this is perimembranous. The one earlier is muscular because it's in the muscular part. Now this one is high up, it's perimembranous, and you find the abnormal flow here is the VSD jet from the left ventricle is going to the right ventricle, abnormal jet. Perimembranous. So this is how you diagnose by echo. Very easily you can diagnose. This is another example of echo diagnosis. See, the same thing. First, in the muscular part, you have abnormal flow like this. So it's a moderate ventricular septal defect in mid-muscular part of the septum, in the mid-muscular part of the septum. So this is VSD in the mid-muscular part. VSD, mid-muscular part. So this is how you diagnose. Now, how do you treat? Treatment. Small VSD, they don't cause problem. They usually don't cause cardiac enlargement, pulmonary hypertension. We only observe them. If it's very small ESD, you hear a lot of sound there. Murmur is very prominent. You know, you find harsh murmur, high frequency murmur, but then you don't have to be afraid of it. And the only thing you observe, follow up regularly. Now, if it is big, moderate size, let's say, nowadays again percutaneous device closure in selected cases. If the patients, just like in ASD, you have closure device, Amplatzer occluder device are available. So you use the similar device just like in ASD and you can close it. But most patients are treated surgically. You know, in ASD, a lot of patients, you do percutaneous closure. But in VSD, it's only in selected cases, you may do closure. You may use closure device percutaneous by catheter. In most of the patient, you have to do surgery. Surgery is done. If there is history of infective endocarditis, you have to do surgery, close it. If the pulmonary flow is very high, you know, the ratio of pulmonary flow to systemic flow is 2.0 or greater, and this left ventricle is very much enlarged, then you have to close it. Surgical closure is generally done rather than percutaneous closure, but in very few cases, percutaneous closure is done. So I have covered 3 topics today.